Hello and welcome again. This is the last part of my 26-part series on Johannes Brahms' Variations and Fugue on a theme by Handel Opus 24. My name is Erik Reischl and I will now point out some interesting details of the concluding fugue. The fugue is much longer than all the other variations before, almost 5 minutes. And here it is. Let's start with a principal theme, the so-called subject. It is very narrow, only 5 notes from B flat to F. The subject consists almost entirely of only neighbored notes. There are only 2 places with a tiny jump, in fact twice the same, D, F, D. If you compare it to the original Handel theme in the beginning, you may discover the similarity. Five notes of both themes are even identical. Now, when the second voice enters the exposition, the first one continues its line with a so-called counter subject, which consists of 2 upwards legato scales and 4 contrasting motifs of 2 short rhythmical notes. It may sound strange, but basically that's all the material the fugue is built on. 4 motifs altogether. The subject with a mordent motif and the turn-like ornament. Then the counter subject with a scale and the staccato rhythmical motif. Of course, Brahms takes care to put as many variations into these motifs as possible. For instance, at several places, the upward scale motif is reversed to a downward scale. Striking may be the extensive use of parallel sixths, like here. Or thirds, like here. To me, personally, this is a tiny disappointing aspect, because it is quite easy to write these intervals sounding nicely together. Whereas the real challenge in composing a fugue is the struggle to find good combinations of voices which are not parallel. Now, Brahms was a master of counterpoint, and he proved it several times before in that work, so maybe the use of parallels might serve another goal. Frankly, I'm not quite sure what this goal might be. Maybe for the sake of a more organ style or even orchestral sound to end a work of almost half an hour. One indication for this theory could be this passage. The left hand plays a classical role of an accompaniment here, which is highly unusual in a fugue, where actually all voices, 4 in that case, should have an independent and equal role of a melody. In order to keep this analysis simple, please allow me to skip the many details that could be pointed out throughout the whole fugue. There are just 3 aspects left I want to talk about. That is, the augmentation, the pedal note, and the double falling fifths at the end of the piece. For the augmentation, listen to the following passage. So, what happened to the theme? It is very simple. It is just doubled in the length of the notes. Where we had 16th notes in the beginning, we now have 8th notes. This augmentation stays for quite a long time, for 18 bars to be precise. Now, what is a pedal tone? Some of you may remember my analysis of Beethoven's Waldstein Sonata, but I'm happy to explain it here again. Imagine a big church organ. With the pedals, you can create deep and long tones. And when you have such a long note staying the same, with changing harmonies in the upper regions, that's what you call a pedal tone, sometimes referred to as organ point. Brahms uses this pedal tone in a very interesting way. That is, not constant and not in the bass section, but by playing octaves in the right hand. In this form, it sounds more like a church bell swinging forth and back. Later, it switches to the left hand. And it stays in this tone of F for, believe it or not, 12 entire bars. Finally, let's have a look to the last 5 bars. We have here an alternation of C major 7 and its resolution to F major several times. That would be the regular harmonical approach to an end in F major. You call this the fall of fifths from C to F. But remember, the piece is written in B flat major, 1 more fifths lower. So, right after 4 times of that alternation C-F, Brahms suddenly switches to F7 and alternates F7 in B flat major several times. This is why I call this passage the double falling fifths. It seems as if he wanted to make a twice as strong statement that this is undoubtedly the end of the piece. Here is what it sounds like in context. So, here we are at the end of this part, and this is as well the end of this tutorial. I enjoyed a lot going through that impressive and wonderful work, and I hope I could point out for you some interesting details so that this series was entertaining and informative at the same time. I have to admit that it means a lot of work to prepare and create such a series, but after several positive feedbacks for my Waldstein Sonata tutorial, I decided to do this one. And who knows, maybe one time I'll put another one for you online. Until that time, I'll be happy to hear from you. Have a wonderful time and thanks again for your continued support. Bye bye.